Hey folks. All right, so this morning we have got a new sow coming onto the farm. I really wanted to have 8 sows going into this fall. Try to get a nice even 4-4 on our litters, and since we were culling one, it really didn't work out. We did save one back to keep that line, but just kind of kept my fingers crossed that something had crossed my path, and it did. One of our customers just bought a couple, and conveniently the person he was buying off of had another one left available. Checked her out through videos. She looks all right. She was bred real young. She was bred about 5.5, 6 months old. Farrowed a litter, and they're 10 weeks old now, and she's 11 months old. So she's really young. According to tape weight though, it didn't stunt her that much. Tape weight said 377. It was 56 inches around right behind the shoulders. Girth a little lower down was 40. So I don't know, we'll see when she gets here. I might retape that and see how that looks out. But yeah, y'all are gonna get to see us unload her. And then another thing that several people have asked about is how we do wormer orally. So we're gonna take her over to our quarantine pen, and we'll talk about quarantine and things like that. And then we'll go ahead and give her wormer, and I'll show you guys how we give ivermectin orally. Yeah, so we'll see if we can catch her unloading. I'll ask his permission, of course, before I film. So if you don't see us unloading her, then it's just because he didn't want to be on camera, and that's perfectly acceptable. So if not, then this will hop right over to us talking about quarantine and giving ivermec. All right, so they're here and they've got our pig, so we're gonna unload, and I'll just work to speed up any slow spots if we need to later in post. These straps good to stay on or need to come off? What?
No, they're good.
They're good?
They're just holding that. Sheila thought they didn't like the ramp.
Yeah, they don't really like the see-through. So on ours, because currently I've got to buy a new trailer. We've been using a utility trailer like this with a much more janky setup than you've got. Ours are just cattle panels on the side, and it's just all get out. But we did it for one of our processing plants. Didn't have a bay to unload in. They just had a dock, and you had to back up. And if you had a drop-down trailer, they just bring out some cattle panels, so they really preferred it if you had one of the sliding doors on your trailer.
Where you can just back up to theirs.
Yeah, and then slide it. And so we cut out the mesh on one and put a bolt-on door so we could just take the door off to let them out. And every time I loaded after that, it was plywood. Every time I loaded after, they'd always go like that and just avoid the mesh like nobody's business. So I just wound up taking the, and when I was trying to load more than just a couple, it was like, okay, God. So we just removed the other, we just bolted a piece of plywood on top of the other. And so then from then on, they'd go up both sides. Yeah, I don't know why they don't like the mesh, but I guess just because they can see through it.
Yeah.
But
That's what she was thinking it was, but I also think that they didn't want to leave it.
yeah, no, and they're not going to. And so when we do it, like we always work to try to have everybody caught before we sell, like before the customer gets there. So I'll take and I'll make a little pin, and we'll just feed them in that pin. So then you just got to back the trailer up to it, open one end of the pen onto it, and then their only option is to either go on the trailer for a little bit more food, or we start walking that back panel. And then yeah, and then their only option is to go in. My goal is load out to take 10 minutes. So, because when I load out to go to the processor, it's the same thing. Like I get them used to the trailer a day or two before. That's where they're getting fed, so they know like, oh, if I want to eat today, I'm going to the trailer. So that, but I still have that pin around it, and it's just open. So then when I feed them in the morning, if one of them is being a pain about, like if I'm culling a sow and she's in there with them, you know, they're always like, no, the whole trailer is mine. You guys get out of here. Yeah. So she'll start to cause problems, but I can then close them in, and they're at least in that back, and I can then work to force them up and close the back end. So,
So,
yeah.
where, so I guess the gilts, you don't sell your feeder gilts.
Not normally. I have one customer that I sell feeder gilts to, and that's it.
Because you know he's gonna.
Yeah, I know she's gonna process, and it's a big company, so they do a commercial, or not commercial. I mean, it is commercial, but they're like one of those farm parks essentially. Like their goal. I mean, the farm does need to make a little bit of money, but for the most part, the farm produces stuff for their little store and their restaurant. They have no desire to breed animals there. They want to buy in and process for the restaurant, make it as easy as possible for them, and they sign a contract saying that should that animal breed, they have 3 options. One is to have a vet come out and lutolace the litter, which is abort, before they're like the moment they know that happened, come out and lutolace. 2, they can euthanize upon birth, and 3, they can take them to weaning, and I have between 8 and 16 weeks old to pick them up. They're my piglets, and that's enough incentive, I feel like, for them to be like, not be a huge pain in the, like, we don't want to do that. They have signed a contract, and well, a contract a lot of times is just a piece of paper. This is a big enough company that they're also like, you know, we don't really want to deal with you trying to take us to small claims court, and that being a news story, like, that'd just be a huge pain in the butt. But they're also great. Like, I know them. I have known the person who's the manager for 8, 9 years now. So, like, I trust her completely with it. But if it wasn't for, she's the only person that I trust 100% completely not to do anything with that. So if it wasn't for that, no. We keep them back, and honestly, so they take 8 or more a year from us. And that kind of helps that a little bit. But now we just got a new USDA processor within an hour of us.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah. So we do Chet and Bill's custom exempt processing, and we sell whole and half. And moving 20 plus whole and half hogs a year kind of sucks. But when we do, back when we used to have a USDA processor, we had Hormans, I don't know if you know them, up off Red Top Road. Well, they were here, and they were great. They were, well, as great as could be. Sometimes it drove me a little nuts, but they were the ones that I had to cut a hole out because they didn't have a drop thing. At least if I wanted to do the scale, and I always want to know my weights. But so now that this one is in, we're going to start taking a bunch up there, and we can start getting back in packages again. We can go to farmers market, we can sell just on our website and through drop-offs to city, and that I'll burn through way more pigs. Back when we were doing that, we burned through a lot of feeder pigs a year and made a lot of money on the pigs, because that's I mean, they're for meat. Like, that should be your number one. I make enough money off selling my piglets to, well, for 4 sows, which is what we sold the litters out of this year, because we kept a bunch of feeders back out of another set. So that made about 5.5, 6 grand in income from the one batch. So that covers pretty well feed bill for the year, part of the hay bill for the year, and then that second litter makes about 5, 6 grand profit. Now with 8, I'll make about double that, but my feed bill will be closer to double. So the rest of my income is from whole and half hogs, or those retail packages now coming again, and those I'll make $800 per pig. So drastically more, almost double what I make off of a breeder piglet. So it's way more profitable for me to just take it to that age and send it out. Feed cost for one pig for a year for me is like $280. When I'm selling a pig for $1,500 in little plastic packages, that's definitely worth it. And that's if I sell it fall, is those nice little packages. We have to do whole and half or a bunch of ground. Ground's not very profitable, but.
So what do you sell whole and half for?
Whole and halves, we are doing, let's see, $5.25 for a whole hog per pound. And they pay processing. And $5.75 a pound for half.
Is that live? I mean, not live.
Hanging weight. Yep. Yeah, I know there's a huge difference. There's another farmer near us that does live weight, and so their price looks 1,000 times better. Their price is like just shy of $3. So that customer's like, oh, so much cheaper. It's like, well, not really. Here, yeah. So I break it down, and it's like the difference is like they're 20 cents cheaper, and that's it. So I'm like that, and theirs is raised in a pen. It's one of their hoop houses, so they've got a 20 by 60 foot pen and they're just throwing vegetable scraps and wood chips in there, and that's it. And ours are raised out on grass on the entire thing, and they get goat's milk whey. So like, ours is a drastically better pork product, and I think for 20 cents more, it's absolutely worth it.
Yeah, I really, the pens work great.
Yeah, those are pretty neat.
To bring them
Especially when they were free.
Yeah, that always makes that nice. That's it. We're pulling one down over here that my wife's been asking me to take down for years, and I'm starting to think of like all the spots I could use it to like cut the wire off and weld it onto gates and stuff. Oh, that's really nice thick 2x4 wire. Good. Did you just throw panels up on the side or something to guide them to them, or?
No.
Really? I just went right up there?
Well, I had a pallet over
pallet,
here,
okay.
and there was a bunch of junk right beside her building right
Oh,
here.
okay. So
she
it
went through
seems
it the first
terrible
time.
to try to go that way to any of them anyways.
Right. Well, she did the first time. And then she was out in the yard. But she wanted back in with
That
her
reminds me,
pathways.
I'm going to close the gates. Just in case.
But, you know, they're not aggressive to anyone. I mean, I was really surprised. I thought she was going to get ate up.
No, they're really chill. Like,
Well, I
that's
mean,
one of the big deals about IPPs is
She grabbed one of the Susie's black,
one of the piglets.
and
Yeah.
I mean, made it squall.
Yeah.
And I mean,
I've got one or two sows that act a bit squirrely when I catch one of their piglets, but that's it. It's not like, oh god, I'm gonna die. It's just, I don't really want to be in here with you because you're being a pain in the butt. And that's really it.
I mean, I thought Susie was coming to eat
Oh yeah, no, when they come at you, they're,
her.
But-
And then she just starts smelling of the pig.
yeah, they just stop and stare at
That
the
didn't
piglet,
pay.
yeah. Yep, they're like, what's wrong with this piglet? What are you doing?
I go, what, she gonna get paid?
No, yeah, normally that's what and that's like, it's scary your first couple times dealing with it. Most like, and I've got some sows that, and some groups of piglets that just don't squeal at all, and so you just stand there while they're eating and just grab one, throw it in the crate, grab another one, throw it in the crate, and they're just like, they'll make a little grunt, and then they're like, okay, that works. New spot, I guess.
So what was the USD processor?
USDA processors, Neil Meats, they're in Seymour, so they're about an hour from us, whereas Chet and Bill's about half an hour, but man, all the next nearest USDA is like 2.5, 3 hours away. So that was just a no from me. First off, our trailers, the one we currently have, barely legal to be doing what we're doing with it. Lights don't work, but it's very small, and every cop I've talked to about it is like, well, we can see your truck lights around it, you're okay, and it's an 8-foot little utility trailer, and it's all open mesh, so they're like, we can see your lights. You're probably not gonna pull over for that, but it's very sketch. I'm always worried one of them's gonna lean too hard against the cattle panel and just tear all the cattle panels off, and yeah, so we're buying a stock trailer now. I'm just stressing about, well, whether or not my Tacoma can pull a 12-foot stock trailer, because I can't manage to find an 8-foot new one.
Yeah, so
Honestly, finding a 12-foot is kind of sucking right now, too.
yeah, they're a lot more lax right now than what they were.
There.
Why, you don't want her to go through a window?
Yeah, I really did not want to fix that. Those are, just scrap windows, so I've always been worried if one of those breaks, there's no replacement.
You said you did your video.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
little
yeah.
ones from in
Yep.
there.
Morning, gal. You want some food? Yeah, you want some food? Come on. I know, slippery wood. Come on. Come on.
Because I want to stay in the home.
It'll be much better, less slippery out here.
Yeah. Come on, Ginger. You don't want to go across that way. I don't know if I want to go down either.
Yeah, come on. This is worth it, I promise. You got it. Yeah.
Now she got all that on there. Thought she cut her back open last night. because she went through a barbed wire fence to get back in the pen, and she had a little red spot down her back, but if it was, it's just a little scratch.
Yeah. It's amazing how thick their hides are.
They don't have hides. They have skin.
It's thick skin.
Yeah, they don't have grass.
Where they're at. Yeah. She's not gonna have a lot, unfortunately, where she's going. I'm not happy about it, but I've been grazing my boars in my quarantine pen. Yeah. I taste it. It's nice in there.
Now, as far as I know, she is not bred. She hasn't been with me.
She hasn't been with me?
Yeah, they've been apart this way.
Okay.
I've had.
Perfect. Because she's going in, as soon as she's done quarantine, 30 days, she's going in with one of my other boards, so. I know, I knew she was going to get distracted about the grass. That's what I'm like, if she's eating next to the backyard, it's fantastic. Come on. Come over this. Come over this.
You need to mow.
We don't mow. I mow pathways. That is it. I mow the spots that I absolutely have to. Beyond that, I leave it for the bugs. Bugs and birds. Our kitchen window is right over there. Oh yeah. Right around that green there. And you're lucky that's not hot right now. And with all the brush here, and that's one of our willow coppices over there. With all of that, we get a lot of indigo buntings and Baltimore Orioles right outside our kitchen window. So, very pretty birds.
Keep going.
That's also like
Now, will my feeder pig be okay? You know, do I put him in with the board?
you can put him in with the board.
Okay, so he's not lonely.
Yeah, especially since they've already been together. Yeah. They may tussle, but it's not likely to get that small yet. Make sure when you feed two piles.
I really don't want 28 wallows.
Yeah, I know. I saw your post about that, and I don't have a good solution for you for that because they turn all their water barrel spots for me into wallows, and so I've got well over a dozen paddocks at this point. I have well over a dozen wallows, and it is what it is at this point for me. They don't dig them very well. I don't have any rocks for the most part.
That's all I am.
Well, no, standard Ozarks farm. I've grown up here my whole life.
Yeah.
And so when we bought this place, and I had to dig this, we put in all the fence here. There was no fence when we bought this, except for the metal posts. That was there, and it was just barbed wire. But everything else we put in. And first post hole I dug, I was just like, and even right here next to the house, when we put this stuff in, was just like, I mean, I grew up using a rock bar more than the post hole digger to dig holes, and here, I don't hit a single rock. What I do hit is about 30 inches down, I hit clay hard pan, which is just solid. There's no going through it unless you want to. I did bust through in one spot just to see how deep it was, and it was almost a foot thick. So, no, I hit it now, and 30 inches is as deep as my posts go. There's no, yeah, that extra 6 inches isn't worth it.
Yeah, I've got about 2 acres that's around my house, and I've got 40 acres.
Okay.
And so what I've done all along the barbed wire fence around my house, I strung up hot wire.
Okay. Yeah.
And then my paddocks are 25 by 90. I want them to be 25 by 100, but the gate blocked them. So
yeah.
I made them 25 by 90, and then I just take it down. I've got the step-in T-post.
Yeah.
And
which are real fun when you have rocks. So.
Well, I got a 3-pound sledge.
That's
my step-in.
That's your
and if I
step-in.
can't get through that, I've got I call it my rock bar. It's a concrete stake that they used to hold up there.
Yeah.
And I drive it in first.
Yeah, and you can pull it out of the way
and then stick beside it.
I've seen a really neat, well, it was Joel Salton that did it. It was when they did their very first sets of electric. They just used old tires filled with concrete, and they weighed a ton, so I'd probably use something a little smaller, but they just concreted some tires with their step ends in it, because they had solid rock too and couldn't go through it, and so then they just picked those up and just set them in place wherever they need them.
Right.
So, I don't know.
Yeah,
Thought if you got a spot that's like, oh man, I cannot get through that.
my electric fence, I have it from, it's a U, and then the next one's a U, which blocks this one, and then when they're done with the first paddock, I'll move it over, put the 5 stakes in,
Yeah.
and go through
What? How often are you planning on moving?
5 to 7 days.
Okay, 5 to 7 days they'll have a wallow. I was gonna say if you're moving daily, you can avoid the wallow for the most part. Oh, it's feeders out there. They want to get fed for the morning. Yeah, if you move daily, you can pretty well avoid the wallow for the most part by just spraying them down, and they never get the chance to really build one.
Well, I've got
You move
kiddie
once a
pools.
week. Kiddie
I
pools?
did buy kiddie
So my
pools.
kiddie pools lasted 2 days.
Well, you met that one lady, if you was reading any of the post, she goes, they last a year. I bet. And I was wondering if people
No, it's my neighbor.
had
Kid cattle.
a bunch of pigs in
So-
with one kiddie pool.
My kiddie pools, seriously, they lasted about 2-3 days, and that was it. We went through a couple our first year because we've got one of our farrowing yards is a concrete yard. Although we then kept messing with it and found out that one section was just dirt and rock, and we dug out a bunch of the big rocks. It was a backfill area for a barn, and so now she's got a wallow in there. But we kept trying to put her in a kiddie pool, and she just kept destroying them. And I was like, well, they're only a few bucks, but you know, after she went through a few, it was like, this isn't really sustainable. Because I was having to try to cram them in my trash can afterwards.
I was thinking about taking, till I get A-frames built,
Yeah.
a couple of these and making an A-frame and putting a tarp over them.
Oh, yeah. So don't eat your tarp.
Oh, they
This
will.
morning, I would get a very thin sheet. I know it's expensive, but I'd get a very thin sheet of plywood, put that over it, or buy some tin. But
I've got 10.
yeah, I just put some tin on it, call it good. Because the tarps, they will, I don't know why, but tarps are the most enjoyable pig play toy in the world. Anytime that we try to put up like the sun sails, thankfully those sun sails are tall enough they can't reach them, but we had the wind goes real bad one day, tore the string on it, and so it was down on the ground, and just everybody was just grabbing a hold. Thankfully they didn't destroy it, so I mean it's a credit to the sun sails construction, but we've done that in the past with just regular blue tarps, you know, where we'd get the brown UV resistant, and yeah, they just screw with it. We did the billboard tarps for a big chicken shelter, and once we got rid of all the chickens, we ran pigs in there, and yeah, they just grab one end of it and start pulling on it and playing on it, and I don't know why. Tarps are enjoyable. They're crinkly.
Make noise.
Which seems weird, but they said you just put how many animals you're bringing during that block.
So are you going to use them for your personal pork also, or?
Yeah, we'll wind up, so we're going to test them out with 1 or 2, see if this all goes nice, see if we like it. Because we really do like chatting bills. I just really don't like trying to move 20 whole and halves a year. So we'll take a couple to them and see how it goes, see if we can get it back. And if we like it, we'll just transition all of them. Yeah, USDA is always more expensive. But we won't get, like, if I'm getting it for me, usually all of our meat, we get it all processed the same way. And then we just filter off what we want to eat, which is product testing, shrinkage. There's always a couple packages that never quite seal right, or you know, just look a little funkier. So we'll eat those, and then yeah, that's usually how we do all our own. Because then, you know, I've not got a 1 freezer full of pork that I can't sell if I run close. I would much rather us eat stuff that I could sell than me have a bunch of stuff that I can't sell and run out. You know.
Have you tried any of the small supermarkets on getting overfeeders?
Yeah, we used to do that. We used to do Mama Jean's. So we got one of the Republic store. We got all of their spent produce, and we used to feed a ton of that. We would get two full truck bed loads a week.
Wow.
But it was all just cardboard produce boxes. In the summer, God, it got gross, sloppy. You know, just set out in the sun. They never removed the twist ties or anything like that, or the little clamshells. Yeah, so we're standing here, you know, in 90+ degree weather, opening clamshells of nasty vegetables. So my trash can was filling up with twist ties and clamshells and produce baggies and all this stuff. Or we're like, you'd think you got it all, and then come out the next week and there's just twist ties everywhere, and it's like, oh my god, was it just like, and you see that it was a bundle of twist ties that got missed inside a thing of kale or something. And so like, I've still got plastic twist ties and clamshells that I'm finding now. We haven't done that for 4 years, 3 years maybe, and I'm still finding stuff that I'm having to pick up every week. So I've heard Costco had called me a while back, and they were trying to get me to pick up from them. Right, Costco's that new one on 65.
I guess you could say,
Yeah.
okay, I can pick up, but you
No,
clean it all.
yeah. Well, and that's what, so there's a new company that's picking up from Mama Jean's, and that's what they're requiring, and they're bringing their own bins with wheels and everything. So that seemed like a pretty slick solution, but expensive to supply those bins like that, because they're really nice bins. Latch tops, heavy duty wheels that don't go through the plastic, like they're in their own encasing in the back, handles to roll. Sam's or Costco, when they called and told me, they said that they do the big, like the Walmart or the watermelon bins on pallets with a big liner in it. And then they go through and they dump everything out of the plastic into that. So they remove all twist ties and everything, because they're like, we don't want anybody's animal to accidentally die from eating a piece of plastic or something. So we're real big on that. And they'll load it with pallet forks in the back of your truck for you. And that seemed like a pretty good option, except my truck won't hold a pallet. So I couldn't even give it a shot. The only downside I find to Tacomas is they're not 4 foot wide. So, yeah. So I'm giving that one a shot. You can give them a call. I know they go through a lot, and it's fine. Don't really use it as a basis for adjusting your feed amount. Still give your feed and just watch their jowl line. And if it gets real fluffy, like, oh my god, they put on the weight, dial back the grain a little bit, but you're really messing with, the problem we had was that it was really messing with our amount of carbohydrates and proteins, so our grow rates were kind of getting funky. Whereas with that 3.5 pounds of a formulated feed a day plus all the pasture they can eat, we're good. In the fall, when I do, we pick up acorns and walnuts and truckloads of pumpkins. Last year we did 6 or 7 truckloads of pumpkins. That I'll kind of dial back the grain, and if it's a day that I just gave them a ton of pumpkins, they just don't get any grain until they finish all the pumpkins. But that's, 5 or 6 pumpkins per pig per day. So like, that's a lot of carbohydrates. They're pretty good. And if they slim down for a few days, it's usually not a big deal. Because going into fall, they've had all those acorns and everything that's in addition to their stuff. So they've put on a little bit of extra weight. So I'm not worried.
Wonder about walnuts.
Fodder. Yeah, we used to do fodder, and it was honestly just not a good setup for us. It was in our office, which is right around here, and it was all the way across the house. It all drained into a barrel at the bottom that could then recirculate the water up to it. Did not consider how bad, and we've got a video on our farm's Instagram of it, of the system I built, and we used it for a month or so. But we did not consider how nasty that water gets after just a couple of days of recirculating through all that grain. It just gets sweet, releases those sugars, goes to the bottom, gets real gross, real stagnant, real fast, even with the pump running to circulate it. It was on a timer, I think 2-3 times a day. And so it needed drained pretty frequent. Well, the only way to drain it was to then pull the hose pump and pump it out the window.
Oh, yeah.
And then I had to refill it, and it was like 30-40 gallons of water that I either had to drag a hose from the well house here, all the way out, down, around, through my window of my house, and put it in there and fill it, or bucket water from my kitchen all the way across my house. And we don't have a nozzle to hook to the kitchen, so it was like pull the bucket awkwardly, fill another bucket, or take pitchers of water and fill buckets. And yeah, so we just didn't have a good system for dealing with wastewater and refilling. If we'd had a good system for that, maybe it would have been okay. But fodder also helps bump up, if you have bad forage production. We did that during a drought. Right now, we're in a drought. I'm starting to head into one at least, but as you can see, I still have plenty of grass. Yeah. Where she is at, she does not now, because she's in what was our boar yard while they were farrowing. So I've had 2 boars in there for a little over 8 weeks. No, actually, because a couple of the sows they had a weird spacing. So when that was, first sow was pulled first week of April, and then they just got pulled out the beginning of this week. So they've been in there 3 months, and I mean, I'm not unhappy with how much they've done in there for 3 months with 2 pigs, 2 full-size boars. But I wish I didn't have to put another pig in it so soon. I really prefer when they get to go in there. It's just like when we had our boar arrive and he went into quarantine, our newest boar, it was all this tall, and really there were a few times it was like, God, I hope he didn't get out. I don't see him.
Yeah, I'll need to make a quarantine for that. I don't have.
Yeah, when you get the batch for me,
Yeah, for them, but
Which, just do a small pen. It does not need to be big. Honestly, especially at the size they're at, just buy 3 or 4 hog panels and just drop them in. That's good enough.
like my feeder right now,
Uh-huh.
he's in one of my chicken tractors.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, it's like a 5x5 chicken tractor, about the same size as that.
Okay,
I just dropped him in that last night.
Yeah.
To get him out of that.
As long as it's something that for 30 days you can just keep an eye on him and get him used to you mean food, you're good. And then somewhere that I like to try to minimize the spread of ivermectin because we just started. I don't know if you saw the video about the good bugs that we did a while back. That we have good insects is the title of that one.
Is it a YouTube video?
Yeah, YouTube video.
Because I've seen all your videos. I don't remember that.
It's.
You just started making YouTube.
Yeah, it's just like 2-3 weeks ago. Yeah. We got good insects, and it's. This is the first year we found dung beetles on our farm, and it's because I missed my fall worming. So we've now gone 1 full year without giving ivermectin, and now I've got dung piles and I need to do another updated video on that because we found the one, and that was a maybe go, because I was like, okay, well when I wean off my piglets, I'll go ahead and worm all the sows when I kick them back out in the field. It won't be a big deal. I hadn't noticed anything in their stool. I had noticed one in with the feeders, but they're all getting ready to go to the processor, so I'm not worried. And I know why they had them. They had missed several rotations when they were small because of where my boars were moving. Did not want to risk that. So they'd been kind of stuck in a spot over winter for I think up to a month. But we found a big old dung beetle, and I was like, man, that's crazy. Never seen one here before. I wonder why. And then started digging a little bit further into it, and then started to find more. And now we're up to 3 or 4 different species of dung beetle on the farm here. And I've got dung piles out with the feeders that I'm seeing them shit it out, and then coming back the next day and it's a loose, crumbly pile of nothing. And paddocks that they just left, I'm not finding any dung. So I'm like, okay, that's good enough for me. I don't want to screw that up because that's exactly what we're aiming for, right? So I'm trying to minimize where we're putting that ivermectin on the farm. Like quarantine pen will just it's gonna have to. And so it'll be interesting to see a pen now that will have had some ivermectin before, because after about 60 days, I'll go ahead and graze that again because then I'll feel thoroughly comfortable after that going ahead and running pigs back to it, because it's part of where we're about to put up another video. I've got a backlog of like 6 videos because of the expo that I just couldn't get edited and uploaded. But we just moved all the boars out with their sows, and so we went out and I've got a map of our farm and was talking about each area and who was going to go where and whatnot, and that's one of my grazing pens for that group of pigs. So now they're just going to back and forth between 2 paddocks, and I'm not very happy about it, but having another pig will make me happy. That'll even out that, disgruntlement of that. But so it'll be interesting to see how that works with having had ivermectin there and how that will compare, because even that one, there's no dung in it, and it was 2 months of having pigs in there. I haven't found a single pat, so I know they poop. There's no way they went 2 months without pooping.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm really wanting to try to keep that, because when you get a lot of those right species, the number one thing that dung beetles do, beyond making it not smell as bad, is they help reduce parasite load because they dissipate the dung, and if you get the tunnelers, they'll bury the eggs. So then the eggs and oocysts can't get back into the pigs. So, but then when they eat so ivermectin has like a 290-day residual in dung. So even if you do it in the winter, it can affect them. So we're just going to, from here out, do it during our fall wormer. I don't remember how long it is I need to look that one back up now because I'm forgetting the number, but in the dung, in the animal expelling it, it's only a week or 2 that it's residual in their system, but the dung itself can carry that and leave it into the soil for 290 days. So what we're going to do is just, our farrowing yards will be a sacrifice area for that. Quarantine area, when it's used, will be a sacrifice area for that, and then our little piglet weaning yard, but it's concrete, so I'll scoop it and throw it in our compost. And our compost is so active that fingers crossed it doesn't affect it too much. But yeah, I'm really hoping to try to keep that going. If I can attract some of those better tunnelers. Right now we've got a ton of dwellers, 1 or 2 rollers. If I can get some tunnelers, I'll be happy. We brought in a tunneler that I caught at work. It was a rainbow scarab. They're so neat. They're really cool to look at. They're bright green and bright purple, and they're about that big. And the males have a big old rhinoceros horn. We caught a female, so no rhinoceros horn. But I was talking to a few people on a different a Facebook group, Stung Beetle Exchange, and like, she's probably already been fertilized, so you'll probably get, as long as you don't ivermectin or anything like that, she'll probably do good. Because I dropped her at a dung pad out in the field, and she just went right up underneath it and started tearing it apart on a fresh one. So, yeah, crossing my fingers.
Yep.